Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I am doing this live stream on May 21st and re-releasing this live stream on my multiple channels. So please, if you can't watch the live stream, make sure you subscribe to the different channels I have so you can see the content that I create. All this is for free. So if you would like to help support the work that I do, please donate on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee. It's really easy. All the links are in the description of this video. Just click the link, go to my website, and you can donate. You can also be a paid member to my Patreon channel and my Substack channel. Again, all these videos I do are for free to give you my perspective on what's happening in the news and what's happening in the market. We live in tumultuous times, especially during the Trump administration, and I think it's very important that you get a unique perspective. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to start off with talking about the decline in New York, SpaceX and its IPO, and what's going on in the Iranian war and how that's affecting markets. Also, on my website, I have a multitude of supplements that will help to slow down the aging process. And some of those supplements are the following. Clarity factor. It's really important to improve your neuroplasticity, build those neural networks so you can have better memory and you're thinking faster. Clarity factor will do that. It'll get rid of that brain fog. And if you take this regularly, drink it with filtered water, but take it every day, you will improve your neural connections. And when you're building up these neural connections, you're going to be able to have better memory and think faster. This is really important to take. It stacks really well with C60, but take it every day. Another great supplement to help slow down the aging process and to get healthy is Myotrol. If you're 40 years of age or older, Myotrol will help to build muscle and maintain muscle. A lot of people that start getting into their 40s, they are starting to lose muscle mass, they're starting to atrophy, and your gene expression has changed. You're starting to methylate more of the genes that you have, and therefore you're shutting down that expression. You're slowing down that expression. Well, you can slow down that methylation. In some cases, you can reverse the methylation. Now, Myotrol, what this will do is it'll help with the gene expression to build muscle and maintain muscle. It will also help with the health of your mitochondria, so you have more ATP to maintain that muscle. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Myotrol. It has polyphenols, flavonoids, and lignans to help with building muscle. If you're an athlete, younger or older, you'll also benefit from taking Myotrol to help build strength for your sport. So it's not just for people that are over 40. It's also for athletes that are younger or older, but you'll benefit if you're 40 years of age and you're not an athlete if you take Myotrol and do a little bit of resistance training. Another great supplement that I have is omega-3. Omega-3 will help with your cardiovascular health. Omega-3 brings down inflammation and helps you to control your lipid profile. When you do that, you have less plaque formation and you have better blood perfusion. That means your organ systems will perform better, your heart will perform better, and even your brain. Why? Well, if you have better brain flow to your, if you have better flow of blood to your brain, then those neural networks, especially in the hippocampus, will be maintained and improved upon. If you start having problems in blood flow to your different organ systems, they start to not perform as well and they start to age. This is why good cardio health, good cardio fitness, and good cardiovascular health is super important in slowing down the aging process. And a good probiotic. Good probiotics also help with brain function, helps you to sleep better, consolidate memory, and to detoxify your central nervous system. You can get the powdered version of the probiotic or the veggie cap version of the probiotic on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. And by taking a good probiotic every day, you're going to improve your gut biome. You're actually going to improve your mood, because a good gut can also improve mental focus, and also individuals that may be depressed. Part of depression can be tied to gut biome. So improving your gut biome is super important. It'll also improve your skin. Skin health will improve with a good gut biome. Your immune system will improve at the gut level. You'll reduce leaky gut syndrome. Your metabolism will be better. A lot of good things happen when you take a good probiotic. So please go to my store, get either the powdered version or the veggie cap version. And make sure you use discount 5, all caps, discount 5, and you get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. All right, with that, we're going to start with Cash Jordan, talking about how New York is going to hell in a handbasket.
The founder of Amazon has come out swinging, and certain people are not happy about it.
Making the tax system more progressive. How about we start by having the nurse in Queens not pay taxes?
Ooh.
Why is somebody at all? Why is a nurse in Queens who makes $75,000 a year paying more than $1,000 a month in taxes?
Right.
That's $1,000 a month that could help with rent or groceries or anything.
Yeah, of course.
And by the way, do you know what that all adds up to? The bottom half of income earners in this country pay only 3% of the taxes.
Wow.
So it's only 3%. We can find 3%. So we don't have, it's a small amount of money for the government, you know that. And really, the more I thought about it, to me, it's kind of absurd that we're doing this. You know, we shouldn't be asking this nurse in Queens to send money to Washington. They should be sending her to.
That's right. And
imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI.
And in a city as unaffordable as New York, you'd think people would get this. If you live in New York City and you make $75,000 a year, your effective tax rate's 24%. But he didn't stop there.
These days, it feels almost impossible to pick up a newspaper without reading a headline about wealth in America, about the billionaire class, about wealth inequality and policy and everything else. And I'm so curious, before we even get into everything else, what you think about that.
What do you think about being attacked, Jeff?
Well, first of all, Andrew, I'm glad you're asking the question. I think it's a really important topic.
Of course.
And I think it's an important one to discuss because I see the same thing you do. You know, you see it in a bunch of headlines, you see it in a bunch of places. And I have been thinking about like, what is driving this? It does seem different from 10 years ago. And I think what's going on is that it's kind of a tale of two economies. So you have a bunch of people in this country who are doing really well, but you also have a bunch of people in this country who are struggling.
He's right.
Who pay rent, groceries. And so what's happening here is politicians are using the kind of age-old technique. So there's this tale of two economies.
And it's happening right here in New York City. You've got people dealing with insane $5,000 rents for a one-bedroom, groceries like $10 milk, and you've got the politicians here saying it's the rich guy's fault.
They're using this age-old technique of, picking a villain and pointing fingers.
Yeah.
But the problem is that doesn't solve anything.
No.
And so, like, if you want to help the group of people who are struggling, you have to figure out real root causes and solutions, and that takes skill. It's like if we have a problem at Amazon, the way we would fix it is we would go in and we'd do the 5 whys and we'd try to get to a root cause. We try to find a root fix, and then when we fix it at the root, you're fixing it forever.
Oh, this is such an indictment of the progressive socialist agenda in these deep blue cities. Here he is saying, if we've got a problem at Amazon, we look at it, we figure out what it is, and we get rid of it. And it takes skill. insinuating that people who live in a problem-ridden place like New York do not have such a thing.
And what we don't do, because it doesn't work, is just point fingers and blame people. It might feel good for 10 seconds, but doesn't accomplish anything. And so what could you really do? So, like, I started.
Do you have a plan?
I have some ideas. I have some places to start.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, I started thinking about this and doing some research. A nurse in Queens.
This is what got Mom Donnie so angry.
$75,000 a year. Pays more than $12,000 a year in tax. And by the way, do you know what that all adds up to? The bottom half of income earners in this country pay only 3% of the taxes. It's only 3%. We can find 3%. So we don't have. It's a small amount of money for the government. You know that. And really, the more I thought about it, to me, it's kind of absurd that we're doing this.
Yeah, it is.
We shouldn't be asking this nurse in Queens to send money to Washington. They should be sending her an apology.
Yeah, New York should too.
It really makes no sense.
Right.
Okay, but then on the other end, the question is, should you be paying higher taxes to pay for the 3% component part of this that you think is going to need to be paid for, if not more than that, given the debts we have?
This is the critical question, because everybody knows the nurse in Queens that was just brought up shouldn't be paying any more than she has to, especially when that money contributes very little to the overall spending problem America and states and cities like New York have, by the way. But what about him? Does he pay his fair share? That's the entire national conversation that will govern the midterm elections. And wait till you hear his answer.
Let me ask you a question, though, about great wealth, though. And
going after the billionaires.
Other issue around on the tax front is whether people of great means at the very, very top end, and Elizabeth Warren has made this point repeatedly, I think she's made it in reference to you and others, are able to pay a lower tax rate, even though you're paying an enormous sum in taxes. A lower tax rate than maybe I am.
Is he paying his fair share?
Sometimes say that I don't pay taxes. So true. I pay billions of dollars in taxes. And it's a perfect, again, if people want me to pay more billions, then let's have that debate. But don't pretend, that's going to solve the problem. You could double the taxes I pay, and it's not going to help that teacher in Queens. I promise you. So you can't connect those two things, not logically. There are more examples. Why is rent expensive? Why is rent so expensive? I recently saw somebody blamed it on Airbnb.
No.
Okay. Airbnb is not the cause of expensive rent. In fact, it's been almost, let me finish here 1 sec. It's already been outlawed in New York City, and rents are still very high. So we know Airbnb isn't causing high rents. What's really causing high rent is government intervention.
Oh, and there it is. He's right. If you double his taxes, the country is still going to waste all of that money and still going to spend more than it should be spending.
It's certainly...
Every time the government intervenes in something, it affects the equilibrium between supply and demand. It's simple economics. It's economics 101. Everyone that took economics class understands this concept. But unfortunately, the pedagogy in the school system today, especially in college, is teaching Marxism, not capitalism.
A perfectly valid policy debate to say, do we want an even more progressive tax system? So, the line that gets quoted all the time is, the wealthy should pay their fair share.
Yeah.
And we can argue about what the fair share is.
It's never fair enough.
Debate. That's okay. But the vilification is the thing that's just the distraction. And by the way, if you really are being honest about it, we don't have a revenue problem in this country. We already have the most progressive tax system in the world. The top 1% of taxpayers pay 40% of all the tax revenue. The bottom half pay only 3%. We have already, and I think it should be zero. I don't think it should be 3%. I think it should be zero. So we would make it more progressive.
Going to be mad about that.
We actually have a spending problem.
A spending problem. He said we have a spending problem in America, and he's right. And you know what the problem with spending problems is? Eventually they spend everybody else's money and it's all gone and everybody's bankrupt and people are worse off than before the spending problem.
And that's exactly what happens in Animal Farm. In Animal Farm, they kick out the capitalists, the farmers, and then you have Napoleon the pig saying that he's going to make all the animals equal. And then eventually there's corruption and, there's bylaws that are created that where animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. And eventually the farm starts to go into chaos. That's exactly what will happen if more cities in the United States start doing the things that Mondani wants to do in New York. In addition, we need to actually put the higher education underneath a microscope and actually pay attention to what they are teaching the youth in high school and in college, especially in the general requirement courses. And in these courses, it's pushing multiculturalism, it's pushing a post-modern philosophy of relativism. It is anti-patriotic, and it also is pushing for socialism, and a lot of the readings are about communism or about creating a welfare state. These were not taught pre-1945. Now, if you don't believe me, all you got to do is take your AI and ask at Harvard or Yale, what were the general readings that were required in the 1800s, the 1900s, in 2000, and 2025. And you're going to notice a pattern. They were more focused on the classics, and that Adam Smith was, for Wealth of Nations, was a requirement to go over. And now it's Marx, Karl Marx. It's not Adam Smith anymore. So people need to pay attention to the pedagogy. That's another part of this problem. It's not just the taxation. It's also what the youth is being told.
That's why we got to deal with this stuff.
And that's a skills issue. I mean, let me give you an example. The New York City school system, right?
Ooh,
They spend $44,000.
what a waste of money
per student. 44,000.
Yeah,
That's 30% more per student than other big cities like Chicago,
wasting their money.
LA, and Boston.
Now think about that. Most of the kids that are coming out of New York schools, you're saying 44,000 a year. All right. A very nice education, private school, is going to cost you about $20,000 more. And you're more educated and more disciplined. The kids that are going to the public schools in New York, they're having problems reading, writing. They're not well behaved. And your tax dollars are paying for $44,000 per student. Now, another part of the problem is that because New York is a sanctuary city, taxpayers have to pay for illegal aliens and their kids. And so it would be interesting if how much the cost would go down if New York wasn't a sanctuary city. Because you have to remember, a lot of these people that are coming over the border illegally, not recently, but during the Biden administration and in previous presidencies, They brought their kids. That means they have to be educated in these sanctuary cities. And so it drains the tax base. But if New York's spending $44,000, you can send your kid to a very prestigious private school for $56,000 to $65,000 a year and get so much more out of it. There's something seriously wrong with the way they're educating today. Another thing that you should take a look at, especially in liberal cities like New York, take a look at the public libraries. And what do they have displayed? It's about gender dysphoria, and they're like targeting the youth with this gender dysphoria, that you don't need to pay attention to your parents. It's about anything goes, whatever you feel like, which is all postmodern philosophy that has degraded the country. Postmodern philosophy is not part of the Enlightenment, no matter how you spin it. And our whole constitutional republic is predicated on the Enlightenment. So, if you have a society through the pedagogy being taught that the Enlightenment is not good and that postmodernism is good, then in the end, you're literally chipping away at our constitutional republic. That is what is at stake here. It's simpleton headline about taxation. That's simpleton stuff. The real meat and potatoes of the issue here is the pedagogy.
And it's 3 times more than Miami and Houston. And by the way, New York City doesn't get better outcomes.
Oh.
So what this? Listen, let me.
It's not just getting better outcomes; they're getting worse outcomes.
Let me just say, if we ran Amazon the way New York City runs their school system, right? Your packages would take 6 weeks to arrive. We'd have to charge you $100 delivery fee, and then when the package did finally arrive, it'd have the wrong item in it anyway. Right. We can't. That's a skills issue, Andrew. It's right. It's not about. It's just competence.
So, New York City, skills issue. Can't solve its own problems, screwing everything up, making everybody's lives worse. And to a lot of people, it's finally refreshing to see somebody who is sitting in an accomplishment, a capitalistic accomplishment. This is his space Blue Origin base right here. Look at.
Now, what's interesting about Ross Sorkin, he wrote 1929. I haven't read it yet, but he also wrote the very good book on the Lehman crash called Too Big to Fail. He is a co-host on Squawk Box for CNBC. I watch him not as often as Bloomberg, but I do watch him. Now, what is interesting here is that he writes really well. So who's interviewing Jeff Bezos is Ross, all right? He writes really well, but there's an element of him that's a little bit of a progressive type, all right? And this is the reason why you can see the little pushback here. It's like, well, there's, maybe nanny state's good for you. Nanny state is not good for you. And I believe Sorkin went to Dartmouth. He may have went to Princeton. I'd have to double check, but I think it was Dartmouth.
The stuff surrounding him and the interviewer, all of it was not built by government. It's finally nice to see somebody who's benefited from capitalism out there defending it. But what about the mayor's idea that because we have a budget problem, we need to raise taxes on the richest of the rich so that everyone can live in New York and so that we can all live happily ever after? What about that?
Revenue.
The piece is that we have a big budget gap. And so whether you're the federal government or whether you're a city, I was going to ask you about what you thought of the Pied-à-Terre tax in New York, and what you thought of what's happened with this Ken Griffin video that the mayor made.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
attacking the billionaires.
Yeah, there's two different. I think there are two different things about that video. On the one hand, it's perfectly fine to have a policy debate about whether you want to have a pied-à-terre tax.
Right.
The second piece, which is not so good, is to go stand in front of Ken Griffin's house and act like he's some kind of villain.
Yeah.
Ken Griffin isn't a villain. He hasn't hurt anybody. He's not hurting New York.
No.
Quite the opposite.
He's improving
And
it.
so that piece of it isn't right, and there was no reason to do that. A pied-à-terre tax,
Second home tax.
There's a very taxes on out-of-towners are very popular taxes. That's why there are hotel taxes, and hotels always have very high tax rates because why not tax the tourists? And there are limits. If you raise the hotel taxes too much, tourists stop coming.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to be judicious. But I think that the pied-à-terre tax is a fine thing for New York to do.
Oh.
And, they have to figure out. But it's a policy debate.
Right.
Policy debates don't have to be finger pointing. This is the piece that, and it's,
So you're not going to sell your place in New York.
unfortunately, it is an effective political technique. It's as old as the hills.
Right.
So when you don't know how to solve a problem, create a villain, blame them.
Yep, and that's exactly what's happening here. But here's the reason he doesn't think New York's second home tax, which generated a ton of controversy, is actually that big of a deal. And it's probably because the numbers don't add up the way the mayor told everyone in New York they did.
I'm thrilled to announce we've secured a pied-à-terre tax. Mayor Mamdani, great idea, but you do have one big problem. The billionaires you're trying to tax may not even qualify because New York City's system is so broken. A penthouse sold at 432 Park Avenue for $87.7 million. The city assessed it at $1.6 million for tax purposes. Sting bought an apartment for $65.7 million, assessed at $1.89. President Trump's personal apartment in Trump Tower, the city assessed it at $2.6 million, missing the mark for the $5 million cutoff for the pied-à-terre tax.
Wow.
All these luxury condos are assessed at a fraction of what they're worth. Rent-stabilized buildings down the street pay nearly 5 times more in effective tax rates. 5 times more.
And that's why the teacher in Queens is getting hammered in New York, and the billionaires are still skating by. This is why the second home tax isn't going to do all the miracles the city put forth when the mayor went out there and made that controversial video. Also, at the exact same time, New York City, $5,000 a month for a one-bedroom apartment, $3,000 for a studio that's the size of the room I'm sitting in right now. These are absurd prices.
We subsidize demand with things like tax policy, which is fine. But at the same time, we constrain supply. We constrain supply with things like zoning and permitting. Why does it take so long to get something permitted to build? Look, if you want rents to come down, Econ 101 is really simple. You need to, you can't sort of subsidize supply. Subsidize demand and constrain supply. If you do, prices are going to skyrocket. But this is not anybody's fault other than government policy.
What he's talking about right here is somebody like Mayor Mamdani's idea that you're going to jack up taxes on rich people so that more people can live in a place that already doesn't have enough apartments for people to live in. All that's going to do is make the prices of these apartments go through the roof, because if you have a $5,000 apartment and now everybody...
The problem is that the city doesn't want to really solve the problem. They say that they want to solve the problem, but the problem is there's not enough housing for people. If you have more housing built, it actually would drive the cost down. What they want to do is demonize people, the wealthy, just increase their taxes by 2%, just tax their second home. They still have a budget problem. They still spend way too much money. And when that other revenue comes in, they're spending on illegals and they're spending on programs they don't need, like childcare and a bunch of other stuff. And then they'll come back 365 days later and ask for more and ask for more and ask for more, year after year after year. But when you get back to what caused the problem in terms of affordability, it's mostly in New York, it's because of housing. There's not enough units compared to the number of people. That's the problem. Fix the problem. and stop creating these programs where the tax base can't afford it. New York, to fix the problem, needs to build more housing. New York, to fix its budget problem, needs to be honest with its citizens and say social programs need to end. Done. No more.
Got the ability to pay $5,000 a month. The landlord, they can only rent that apartment one time. So what are they supposed to do? They got to pick somebody. And how do you pick who rents it? Well, somebody's going to have to offer more than that. And we're already seeing this. We're already seeing bidding wars in the rental market here right now that are very extreme. There's very little inventory. Now, at the same time, as we have people like the mayor of New York out there being very upset with the idea that a teacher in Queens would pay lower taxes, or being very upset with the idea that taxing a billionaire won't actually fix a teacher in Queens's problems, we've got other people out there who think that it is possible to find some sort of compromise solution with a mayor who totally believes in socialism.
Champion everything. Did you get to him?
Yeah, I mean, listen, my conversation with him, and you and I have spoken about this, I agree with his platform on affordability. We just disagree on the execution. I think you have to do it with growing revenues, and the best way to do that is work with the business community and the private sector, not by taxation. I also think he learned very quickly when Wall Street did well, his deficit in the budget actually collapsed because of revenues from taxes.
When did Mamdani
That's the
learn
best
that?
way to get taxes. People make big wages, collect it because they're doing well. And I think it's very clear after meeting with Jamie Dimon, he met with, and David Solomon and Brian Moynihan and Jonathan Gray, all Wall Street execs, that we have to make sure New York City is the capital for financial services. And the only way to do that is make sure the best people want to come.
Well, New York Post.
So here we have a former Obama economic advisor who is out there saying that Mamdani has learned to work with the private sector. He's learned that it's great when billionaires get rich. I mean, this is the first time I'm hearing any of that. Now, Mamdani has been on a bit of an apology tour, but that apology tour started before tweets like this criticizing the idea that somebody like Jeff Bezos, who's created jobs and built so much wealth that his own
Best part about Russell Stover sugar-free candies: no sugar, great taste, guaranteed.
Why are you paying $80 for garbage internet?
This is Ryoko Pro. It's a pocket-sized Wi-Fi hotspot.
particular net worth pales in comparison to the value he's brought to the world, that guy's not doing his fair share for all of us, not making the country better at all. Oh, no.
He writes, Mamdani's out of touch with the impact of real estate taxes to city coffers. I mean, you know very well how steep those prices are here in New York City. Real estate industry generated tax revenue rose to a record $40 billion in fiscal 2025, accounting for half of locally generated tax revenue. It was the largest source of funding for the city, easily besting the totals for personal income, corporate, and sales taxes. And he's demonizing and going after the very people who pay those taxes.
Absolutely. And to your point, the theatrics have got to go, because I think he put Ken Griffin's family in danger by doing that. So I think that was completely out of line. But we're seeing now Florida turn into Wall Street South as a result of these policies. I mean, the numbers we're seeing in Florida, we've never seen before. We had $39.2 billion of net worth coming into the state. That's $4 million per hour. And you're seeing that as a result of New York and California's policies.
Now, the question is, how do people get out there? How can you believe that there is some sort of compromised position here? You have people in America like Jeff, who not everybody has to love. You don't have to love the guy, but guess what? He didn't steal his money. All of this was built by money that was generated through economic activity. He didn't steal that money. He didn't get to tax somebody to build that hangar they're sitting in right there. And you know what? The value that he has brought to the world greatly eclipses his personal fortune. That's how things work in capitalism. You can't get rich.
Well, there's been some employee issues with Amazon and the management. You know, they treat some of their stocking workers like animals, but I see Cash Jordan's point. The bottom line is this: New York is too expensive. It's too progressive. and it's not wanting to really fix the problem. They need more housing. The biggest problem in New York is the cost of housing. If you fix that, then it will ease up on cash flows, and it will allow for people to spend more, and it will generate more money through economic activity. If the city is having a budget problem, perhaps they need to make sure that they have more economic activity so they can have more tax revenue. You shouldn't be penalizing people because the economy isn't as active as it should be relative to the actual cost of living within that economy, within that local economy. So the bottom line is this: New York's budget needs to be slashed, but they're not willing to do it because they got to have all these social programs. They got to make sure that they support the illegal aliens. They have to, make sure that they have these programs. So another Democrat that's running for mayor or for city council or governorship can say, I did this for the people. Why not just leave the people alone so they can buy the things that they want? And whatever the economic activity is, that's the revenues for the city. If it's less, then cut. If there's more, great. No. What they want to do is they want to redline it all the time with their budget. They want to redline it all the way to the point where it's unsustainable, and they keep on chipping away at the ones that are rich and the ones that are poor. Both sides will be hit by this because of lack of good management, lack of good budgetary prudence.
Let's make everybody else rich first. So whether or not you like somebody, their wealth is a byproduct of what they have done for the economy that they are in. How do you compromise with somebody who says that's wrong? How do you compromise with somebody who says wealth is evil, right? There is no compromise with that. What do you just have a little bit of communism? You just punish them a little bit more? Sure, we can have the debate all we want, but it's not helpful, and it's forcing people out, this attitude.
I honestly, when I started selling real estate years and years ago, I never expected these numbers. But we're also last year we saw 361 sales above $10 million. That's basically one sale a day above $10 million. So I think this is going to continue. And I really do believe, Sandra, that this migration is permanent. It's not like COVID. You're seeing these executives relocate their families. And you're also seeing this in the schools. All of the private schools are overbooked. There's waiting lists as a result.
Which is why my next question is did he allude to wanting to woo those Wall Streeters back?
It's impossible to do that. Once people put their entire family in a U-Haul and drive 2,000 miles south, they're not going to make that drive again. They're going for good. They're going to reestablish themselves, and they're not going to pull up their roots again. Like, doing it once is hard enough. And that's the crazy thing here. New York City, we've got these absurd rents. And the goal isn't to fix those rents by building our way out of it. The goal is to keep the supply where it is. Don't build buildings bigger than 4 stories in certain neighborhoods. Nope, don't do that. At the same time, let's freeze rents. Let's help people pay for the rents. Let's take all the profit out of this game. Anyways, I think this is a fascinating interview. I think it's refreshing to see somebody get out there and defend the things that make America a great country to live in. Government didn't build any of what Amazon has accomplished. You don't have to like Amazon, but the government didn't build that. The government hasn't built anything close to that. They can't even get the post office to run correctly. What do you think about all this? I will see you.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great supplements that I offer, and use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. The next video will be about SpaceX and the IPO. Let me talk about just a few of the products that I have on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Boomer Boost. This will help a multitude of different systems. It will help with brain function, cardiovascular health, also your musculature, your energy levels. It'll soak up free radicals. It will also help boost up your immune system and endocrine system. It helps to slow down the aging process. It's a great supplement to take every day. This is a month's supply. Now, you can stack it with the Boomer Boost or take it separately. Heirloom barley. Heirloom barley helps to detoxify your body, soak up free radicals, and bring down inflammation. And when you're doing that, you're helping your immune system, your endocrine system. You're reducing plaque formation, so your cardiovascular health will be better with better blood flow and less inflammation at the brain level. Your brain will function better. A lot of people have too much inflammation, and that inflammation will speed up the aging process. You want to bring down that. If you bring down the inflammation, soak up the free radicals, detoxify your body regularly, your body will get healthier and slow down the aging process. Now, Gladiator barley is very similar to heirloom barley, but it's one added benefit, and that is it'll help you to build muscle. You can stack this with the Boomer Boost. You do some resistance training. You'll notice that your A1C levels will improve. That's another important thing to keep in mind, is you want to control your blood glucose levels. Gladiator barley will also help to soak up free radicals, bring down inflammation. You recover quicker after a workout. You'll be able to improve your immune system and your endocrine system, your brain function. So you get a lot of benefits by taking the heirloom barley or the Gladiator barley. But like I said, the Gladiator barley has one added benefit, and that is it'll help you to build muscle. That's really important, especially if you're trying to reduce atrophy when you get older. And it stacks really well with the Myotrol that I mentioned earlier in the broadcast. C60 you can stack it with the Boomer Boost and the barley. C60 is a very potent antioxidant. It's almost 1,000 times stronger than vitamin C. Take a teaspoon a day, preferably on an empty stomach in the morning. You'll notice that when you work out, you'll recover quicker. By taking this every day, you can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. You take it every day, it's soaking up free radicals, helping your tissues perform better, your cells to perform better. Your mitochondria will be healthier. And when your mitochondria is healthier, you have more ATP. That means you have more energy. When you get older, you have more inflammation. When you get older, you have less energy. When you get older, you start having problems with your immune system and endocrine system. Your cardiovascular fitness starts to go down, and the health of your blood vessels go down. You can reverse that by bringing down that inflammation, soaking up those free radicals, and boosting up the ATP, improving your mitochondrial health. C60 will do that. It'll also help with the basal layer of your skin. So that's where you generate new skin cells. Well, if the basal layer is healthy, your skin will start to improve and become healthier. It stacks really well with resveratrol, which also helps with the basal layer of the skin. Now, C60 will help with neurons. They'll soak up those free radicals, bring down inflammation at the neuron level, help those neurons to produce neurotransmitters because it has more energy, because the mitochondria is healthier. And over time, your neural connections will improve. You'll be thinking better. You'll have better memory. And at the vascular level, it's going to soak up free radicals, bring down inflammation, and reduce plaque formation. That means that you have better blood flow to your organ systems. So when you perfuse more, then what will happen is that those organs will have the nutrients and the nourishment to perform properly. So if you have a better, healthy vascular system, and that blood flow to your brain is better than, let's say, comparing it to a disease patient that has 50 or 60% blockage in the carotid artery. If you have a better blood flow, then the brain will perform better because it has the nutrients it needs. So it's really important. The earlier that you get on this protocol that I'm talking about, of soaking up those free radicals, bringing down that inflammation, boosting up that health of the mitochondria, the more of a compound effect it will have on your body year after year after year after year. And what will happen is you'll notice that you're aging much slower than someone that's not on the protocol. It's a really simple idea. And then you add in, some basic stuff, holistic approach, proper diet and exercise, learn new things, make sure you sleep properly, doing a little bit of resistance training and cardio, stretching and balancing exercises. When you approach this holistically with the proper supplementation, when you stack it properly, you are radically slowing down the aging process. And it doesn't take a lot of money to do this. But what it does take is vigilance and consistency. So get the C60. You can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. You can get it in extra virgin olive oil. You can get it in avocado oil, and also in MCT coconut oil. It's a very strong antioxidant, and I take it every day, and I've been taking it for 10 years. Now, another great supplement to take is the vitamin C and magnesium. This will help with your skin, but also help with your immune system and brain function. Magnesium is super important for brain function, and it will also improve the efficacy of vitamin D3. Now, lastly, before we get to the video here, vitamin D3 will help to absorb calcium, to help build denser bone. It'll also help with your cardiovascular health. It'll help to get rid of cells that need to go into apoptosis if they're infected. So that's why it's super important to take during the cold season. And vitamin D3 should be part of your daily routine. Super important. And again, you get higher efficacy of vitamin D3 when you stack it with magnesium. So you can get the magnesium from my store. You can get it through the vitamin C and magnesium and the magnesium and zinc supplement. That will also help to boost up that immune system and help with brain function. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description. Take my advice. It works. All right? Trust me. I've been doing this for a really long time. All right. Let's listen in to Bloomberg on what's going on with Elon Musk and SpaceX.
Trying to save money on business travel? You should definitely use Navan. Navan's platform helps our companies save money by giving us full control. What do we know?
Yeah, first quarter revenues for SpaceX, almost $5 billion. What they're claiming is that this is a company where Musk being in total control, and as we've just headlined, which will need voter approval, is going to work because it's vertically integrated. The rocket platform is giving them the best opportunity to dominate satellite-based broadband connection. They basically are making the claim that even as of now, they are the leading satellite broadband provider. We're going through it, and what we're trying to work out is like the structure of what's going on. In the calendar year 25, company notched $11.4 billion of revenue. But clearly, if you look at like the jump from where they ended last year into the first quarter of this year, there's a really big acceleration here where in the interim, Starlink and space-based internet accounts for so much of it. Yeah. But they're clearly outlining the path forward here. Yeah. That is space-based data center.
All right, so I just walking through a couple of the headlines, walking through right now, on the Bloomberg terminal. Starlink has about 10.3 million subscribers, something that potential investors really did want to know here. The space segment revenue at about $619 million total revenue for the last full year for SpaceX as a whole, $11.4 billion here. And I'm also curious about this, Ed, this idea that it's entered into a compute pact with AnySphere. And I want you to know if you could kind of, and you have to talk to me, like I'm a 5-year-old here, because this gets kind of complicated, about how Elon is sort of structuring this company and what he wants it to be, because clearly he's not envisioning this as just a rocket launch company.
No. Basically, why does SpaceX need to go raising lots of money? What they're outlining in the document, and it's dense, right? I've been through as much of it as I can in 6 minutes, is a world where if they get their rocket launch system fully reusable and the cadence right, they build out a massive network of satellites that operate as data centers. But the point of the data centers is inference, running AI workloads on a dollar per token basis that would make them, if they can get the economics of it right, better and more competitive than a data center here on Earth, terra firma, that's a big tin can with lots of servers on it. And the money raised from this IPO, which we can get into in a sec, is used to buy GPUs. It's kind of simple equation from that standpoint.
All right. This is CNBC's take on
SpaceX taking a very big step towards what's almost certain to be the biggest IPO ever. I'm going to get straight over to Leslie Picker. She's got the perspective. She's been going through all of it. What do you see as the biggest highlights, Leslie?
Hey, Andrew, good morning. Yeah, after being filed confidentially, SpaceX flipped its S1 public yesterday, giving a long-awaited peek into the 24-year-old company's financials. SpaceX generated $18.7 billion in revenue last year. That was up 33% from the prior year. In the 3 months through March, SpaceX generated $4.7 billion in revenue and a net loss of $4.3 billion, nearly the same size. The company also showed long-term debt of $29 billion. Still, SpaceX is seeking a valuation around $1.5 trillion, and that's on some of the conservative side, based on some of the sources I've spoken with. That implies a multiple of 80 times last year's revenue.
Now, I'm just going to interrupt here really quick. Now, my perspective on SpaceX, there's going to be a lot of people wanting to purchase this IPO and be a part of this. Now, I suspect that at the very beginning of the few days of trading, it's going to go up. And then after about a week or two, then you're going to start to see it go down. I think that once you see that downward movement, that's when you should buy if you want to buy into the IPO. Now, I personally think that Tesla and SpaceX, their long-term play here is about a much different economy than what we have today. SpaceX wants its long-term mission, its strategic mission is to be going to the moon and going to Mars and beyond. You know, what would be kind of cool is actually SpaceX getting into solar weather, where you actually know what the weather pattern is on all the planets at any given moment by just having weather satellites. But that's for another day. But the point here is that there's a long-term and short-term mission for these two companies. SpaceX, long-term, planetary. Now, short-term, it is plugging into a different economy that is using data centers. Now, if they can make it more feasible to put it in orbit versus having it on the Earth, then SpaceX, out of all these companies, are probably going to be the most profitable as a hyperscaler. Now, for Tesla, it's not so much EVs, electric vehicles. It's about robots. They will make more money selling robots than cars. So there's a new economy that's happening here. So there's going to be a lot of interest. It's 80, they're projecting that implies a multiple of 80 times last year's revenue. That's pretty high of a multiple. Even 35 times is too high. So there's going to be a lot of people buying in, but I suspect that after a couple of weeks it's going to drop, and once that drops, then you want to buy in. Could you make some money at the very short end of this, within a few days? Yeah, probably. I'm not buying into the IPO. I'm not a big fan of buying into IPOs, but statistically, if you buy in an IPO after a couple weeks or months, it's actually declined, depending on when you buy in, right? Because when you buy it, once the market opens, there's a huge candle that is created, and that spread is pretty big. From the moment it opens to when that first trade is happening, it can be tens, $20, $30 more, $40 more. I mean, it's big because there's just a flood of this happening. Now with the new rules that's happening with the NASDAQ, there's going to be forced buyers to buy the IPO to make sure that it's added in these indexes that are tied to NASDAQ, like the QQQs and other, they're going to be forced. So you have these institutions that will be buying a lot of this stock. But once they stop buying, it kind of will peter off and then it'll start to decline. This is what I mean by if you buy the IPO, it would be just a very short-term play to make money. Because once the big flood that comes in that has to adjust their index, where's the new money that's flowing to keep the price of SpaceX up? So be very careful on this, all right, in the short run. In the long run, I think it will be very profitable. So if you want to hold it for 5 years, yeah, you'll probably make a decent amount of money. But if you're just doing this day trade type thing, or even like just a few days trade, you'd make some money with the IPO if you're very careful and you watch it. But be careful of once that big flood of money is coming in to buy, where's the new money coming in to buy? And that's probably when you'll start to see it drift. You sort of saw this happen with Facebook and Twitter when they went IPO. And it took a while for them to actually start marching up. But once they started marching up, then it would, especially Facebook, you could be profitable. All right. So I suspect something similar is going to happen with this, is that there's going to be a big flood of buys for this stock, especially linking it to indexes, to the NASDAQ. And then all of a sudden, there's not a whole lot of buyers. Now it could ride for like 2 weeks or so, but then it's going to peter down. And when it does peter down, then that might be the time to actually, okay, now, the overbuying is done. Now it's starting to settle. Now you get in. If you want to look at this from a long-term play, that's my take on it. But again, I'm more macro trader, not micro. I don't purchase individual stocks. I just think that there's too much idiosyncratic risk. But looking at this in the future, SpaceX and Tesla is about a new economy that is starting to be built up, but we're not living in it yet. We're not living in it yet. Now, what is interesting is watching how SpaceX performs quarter after quarter after quarter, and looking at some of the other hyperscalers and seeing how that interplay, especially when SpaceX is building out this compute in orbit. Will this affect Oracle? I think it will, to the negative. All right, with that, let's keep on chugging along on CNBC.
But there appears to be more growth coming down the pike. SpaceX said that Anthropic will pay $1.25 billion per month through May of 2029 as part of a compute deal that was announced earlier this month, and that capacity will ramp over the next few months at a reduced fee. And this agreement can be terminated by either side with about 90 days notice. Well, most of SpaceX's revenue currently comes from Starlink, satellite business. It says in the prospectus that it has, quote, the largest actionable total addressable market, or TAM, in human history, which it quantifies.
Now, this is interesting. Also, SpaceX could easily bankrupt T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon, because all they have to do is say, we are now beaming to any cell phone and you get internet access and it will cost you X amount of dollars per month. Now, if they're smart, they'll either do it at the same price or slightly less than what AT&T can do. Elon Musk doesn't need to make an iPhone. He doesn't have to build a cell phone. He has the network. And because he has the network, it makes AT&T obsolete. Now, once the bandwidth starts to get better and better and beaming down to Earth, and the compute, see, he's building this out in space to do AI, but it also can be not just to compute AI. What is the internet? The internet is information at servers. Well, that information doesn't have to be just on the Earth. That information could be out in space. So the internet is going to move and grow, not just on the Earth. The internet and its content, its digits, is going to be out in space. So he'll be able to access this information quickly and beam it down using Starlink on your iPhone or your Android phone and cut out the cell carriers. So this is another reason why the revenue stream is going to grow. It's not just rockets. It's not just rockets. No. Just like Tesla is not just cars. It's about robots. It's about using the kinematics of a robot with AI. That's Tesla, not cars. Actually, Tesla's car designs in general are not that great. But the technology that they have created can hit multiple domains. And that's the genius of what Elon Musk is doing. He's building the future.
$28.5 trillion. And the biggest component to that TAM, the company says, is from AI, which it estimates at $26.5 trillion. And that would span infrastructure, consumer subscriptions, digital advertising, and enterprise applications. So this IPO, like many of the smaller listings that came before it, will hinge on the validity, or at least the investors' perceived validity, of these big dreams. Andrew.
So there's a whole bunch of other things in there to me.
Right. So as it takes time for SpaceX to build out the infrastructure, as it takes time to start getting people ready to purchase Starlink for their home, for internet, and purchasing Starlink for their cell phone, once people start buying into this idea, then their revenue stream is going to really grow, but it's not going to grow right away. It's going to be, several quarters after the IPO, if not a couple of years. But the point is that if you hold it, even with the undulations, what will happen is that you're going to start seeing that it's growing. It's probably going to split, stock splits, and you will do pretty well. But you got to view this long term. Now, there's going to be a little bit of play at the very beginning to maybe make a little bit of money on the IPO, buy in, sell after a few days or whatever. But you got to be very careful on that because it's going to come down. Because once all that big flow of money comes in, especially the indexing cash flows come in to buy because they're forced to buy because they have to. It's part of the regulations of NASDAQ. Once these indexes are forced to buy and they've already bought the amount that they need, then where's the new major flow that's going to drive up the price? It's going to be how the management from SpaceX convinces the investor community that their revenues are growing. And they're going to be forced to show not just rockets for the government, but also how they're going to leverage Starlink and get them into more homes and get Starlink to actually beam to cell phones. And then building out that infrastructure for cloud computing. And quarter after quarter, year after year, you're going to start seeing that the revenues are going up.
That were fascinating beyond just the profits and losses, or in this case, still the losses, but just what the revenue trajectory looks like. The idea of retail investors getting access early is fascinating, and I think it's a big experiment. I'm curious what you're hearing on that front. There's the governance question. This is a company that is genuinely going to be controlled by Elon Musk, so much so that technically the company doesn't even need to have independent directors, and what you think that ultimately means. What are you hearing on those fronts?
In terms of retail, I was told that it could be up to 30% of allocations could be retail, and they list a variety of brokerages that they'll be doing that through. Morgan Stanley is directing a lot of this program. Of course, they own E-Trade as well, so you can expect that to be a key component. I had also heard that retail across the pond in maybe the UK and Canada and Japan would be a key component of this as well, kind of garnering retail support, not just here in the US, but also abroad. In terms of the governance, very unique here, not unlike things we've seen at other Elon Musk companies. I believe he'll have about 85% of the control after this company goes public. We should get more details about governance too as the filing gets amended over the course of the next few weeks. That's something that has been out in the press for a while, just the unique governance structure and the ability to remove Musk. It's something that some of the pension funds have really balked at. They're not buyers of IPOs, but they're buyers of indexes. And if this company is included in the index, they could be essentially forced owners of SpaceX. And so they said that the governance structure.
And as these institutional investors are buying more and more of, so you have two types of institutional investors. You have the institutional investor that has clients and they're investing their money in, right? But you also have an institution that has to create products to sell to market, like index funds, right? And because of the regulations that are going on with NASDAQ, these individuals will have to buy into SpaceX. They have to because they are linked to an index. All right. And because this is going to create such a big splash, there's going to be a lot of money that's flowing into these index funds. And then you have other institutions that are going, okay, we are creating portfolios that are tied to this index and we add stuff to it, whatever. And so when they're buying in to that index, then it's also affecting how many people need to be buying these other companies that are in the index. If there are more and more people that are buying into indexes, then there are going to be needing to be more and more more and more managers of that fund that are buying stocks that create the index. All right, that's how this is all working. So there's just going to be a big splash. But again, like I said, you got to be careful here because after 2 weeks or so, where's the extra money? She just mentioned that 30% is retail, 70% is institution. Well, once the institutions stop buying, then the liquidity is going to dry up, all right? And then it's going to start to drift down. That's what I suspect. I could be wrong. It's okay to be wrong. But the thing is that it seems rational to suspect that after all this liquidity comes in to buy these shares, that eventually that liquidity starts to dry up and then it'll start to drift down. And once they start to show profitability quarter after quarter, and their rockets don't blow up, then everything will be okay. But if their rockets start blowing up, that's the day to short the stock. But or it'd be a perfect day to buy it, probably. But it's really important to understand that there's going to be this big flow of institutional investors that want the stock, but they're also buying into an index, so they're forced to own it. And those index funds are buying to hold, to track it, right? So this is going to be a big splash, a very big splash. Now, I think that 80 times revenues, or was it earnings? I'm not sure. I think it was revenue. 80 times revenue, I think it's a little rich right now. But over the long haul, I think SpaceX will be actually a pretty good investment over a 5-10 year period.
Had been out there in reports as something they were not fond of. Whether it's enough to really, prevent this company from filling its order book remains to be seen, but probably unlikely, just given the nature that this is SpaceX, this is Musk, and people have really gotten used to that.
Leslie, let me ask you this about the retail piece of it. There's part of me that loves it in that, you get the idea of democratizing an IPO and people getting access at least earlier than some of the institutions might otherwise, and allocating it that way can be seen as a positive. At the same time, I think there's been a question about whether you think retail investors ultimately stay in. Maybe, do they have diamond hands, if you will? And the reason I ask is Bill Ackman's IPO recently, he actually approached it by trying to offer more shares early on to retail investors. And they ultimately flipped it very quickly, and it wasn't positive. And so I just wonder what you're hearing on that front.
Yeah, no, you're spot on there. And the old school playbook for IPOs, especially big IPOs, was to really lock up a concentrated book of allocations with long-term holders that the bankers can trust and that they know won't flip it. Usually hedge funds were deprioritized. Retail was absolutely deprioritized in big listings like this. So 30% would absolutely be much larger than is typical for a deal of this size. And based on what I've heard, there is, of course, the risk of them flipping. On the flip side, I think there's this idea that retail owns a lot of Tesla, and therefore, it would make sense to extend that to SpaceX. But to your point, with these, we don't know what the float size will be quite yet. But based on the numbers that I've heard, somewhere between 50 to 75 billion, and then if the valuation is, say, upwards of 1.5 trillion, you're looking at a really, really small float. And when you have a supply-demand dynamic like that, you do risk additional volatility, especially if you don't have as great of a sense of the trustworthiness of the people who bought in at the IPO.
Hello, my name is Adam Ferrari, the Chief Executive Officer of Phoenix Energy. I look forward to you joining us at our next investor webinar, where you can drill deeper into our
Okay, so that's the SpaceX news. Let me plug some products here, and then we'll go to the next video. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and help support the work that I do. I do all these videos for free. And I think the information that I just gave you about SpaceX may actually be very pertinent to thinking about how you may want to invest in the long term. Now, lignans. This will help with your immune system and your endocrine system, boost them up. It's going to soak up free radicals and bring down inflammation. That's super important as part of an anti-aging protocol. Turmeric soaks up free radicals and brings down inflammation. And ashwagandha root helps to control blood glucose levels and your cortisol levels. If you can take these separately, and they all work very well, but here's the magic. If you stack them together, they're actually going to radically slow down the aging process. So take the lignans, take the turmeric, and take the ashwagandha root together for max benefit. And what this is going to do is it's going to really slow down that stress on your tissues. soak up those free radicals, boost up the immune system, and help with your endocrine system. But by bringing down inflammation at the brain level, you're also helping your neurons. And bringing down inflammation and soaking up free radicals at the vascular level, you're reducing plaque formation. So it's going to help with your cardiovascular health, your immune system, and brain function. And guess what? Those are major points to focus on to slowing down the aging process. Another great supplement if you're 40 years of age or older is take the vitamin B complex. Vitamin B complex will rev up your cellular metabolism, boost up your energy levels, help with the health of your mitochondria, and protect your neurons. Vitamin B complex is super important to take. Resveratrol helps with youthful gene expression, helps the basal layer of your skin, but also will soak up those free radicals and help the health of your mitochondria. And I've been saying that's super important to slowing down the aging process. And resveratrol not only helps with the youthful gene expression, but also helps to get rid of cells that are in senescence. Cells that just stop dividing and just sit there in your tissue, start collecting garbage. You need to get rid of them. And resveratrol helps with that. Good Night formula has tryptophan, melatonin, and GABA and passion flower to allow you to get into those 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep, so you're consolidating memory, detoxifying your central nervous system, and you're well rested. And you take this every night and you're getting a good sleep, you're going to slow down the aging process and get healthy. Not only that, your cortisol levels are going to be much lower. And if you have elevated cortisol levels because of stress, that does damage to your organ systems. When you have elevated cortisol levels throughout the day because of stress, it also affects your immune system. It degrades it. So you want to keep those cortisol levels down. You can do that with the ashwagandha and getting good sleep. So that's a little trick. And also, structural nanosilver soaps. All right, I have in stock the peppermint. Please go to my store, get the structural nanosilver soap. It helps with the skin pores and it helps to neutralize. Make sure you use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. All right, now what we want to do is take a look at what's going on with the war. World order, Xi Putin thrown into panic as Trump reasserts. All right, let's listen into Fox Business.
Welcome to 66 High Street in Guilford, Connecticut, an extraordinary real estate endeavor. What do you think of President Xi meeting with Putin this week?
Well, he told me he was going to. I think it's good. I get along with both of them, but I think it's good. I don't know if the ceremony was quite as brilliant as mine. I watched. I think we topped them. Good team. But no, I get along with Putin. I get along with.
Well, there's President Trump at Joint Base Andrews last night on the latest meeting between Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin in Beijing. Putin went to China right after President Trump left, and Putin and Xi Jinping condemned U.S. foreign policy as, quote, unquote, irresponsible. Both agreed to advance bilateral cooperations. Meetings ended without a final deal to build a natural gas pipeline between Russia and China. Joining me now is the Gatestone Institute senior fellow, Gordon Chang. Gordon, of course, Xi Jinping invites Putin right after Trump leaves. One more pinch there. Your reaction?
Well, the narrative, of course, is that the world is coming to China. But when you look at both China and Russia right now, you're talking about 2 weak states. And what are they doing? They're complaining about the United States. And they're complaining about us because they can't do anything about what President Trump is doing. So, for instance, you have President Trump removing China from the Western Hemisphere, removing them from the Middle East, and the Chinese can't do very much about it except to carp from the sidelines. And then, of course, Russia is having problems in Ukraine, losing territory, and so this is a very bad story for China and Russia. And the most important thing about the Putin-Xi Jinping meeting, Putin didn't get approval for the Power of Siberia 2 pipeline, which you mentioned. And that was the most important item on his agenda, by far more important than anything else. And so he's going away from Beijing with, yes, 40 agreements, but those are meaningless. He didn't come away with what he really needed, which was approval for the pipeline.
Yeah, it's a great point all around, Gordon, because these two guys, Putin and Xi, they were expecting this new world order, okay? And then Trump enters the White House, and the world order is no longer what they thought. It is once again America in the #1 position. China's been trying to undermine and overtake the U.S. as the #1 superpower for a long time now, not so fast with President Trump in the Oval Office. Gordon, I sat down with NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang, and he told me the details of what went on in China. He said that while he did get approval from President Trump and the White House to sell those H200 chips, he said now it's up to the Chinese government to accept NVIDIA's H200 chips into their market. Watch this. You were just on a trip with President Trump to China. The word was that you did get an approval to send H200 chips to China. Is that true? Will you be selling those chips? And what can you tell us about your business into China?
The interactions with the Chinese leaders were really positive. It was really fun to watch. President Trump and the United States has approved and has licensed the H200 for us to ship to certain customers in China. The government has to decide whether to allow H200s to enter China for their customers, for their market. They're balancing, of course, on the one hand, protecting the local companies like Huawei and others. On the one hand, on the other hand, conveying to the world that they want China to be an open market and in fact to be even wider open in the future than today. And so I think that somewhere in the middle is where they're going to work it out. Whatever they decide to do, we will honor. And if we have the opportunity to go back to China, we'd be more than pleased and joyed. And it would be a great honor for us to support that market.
Gordon, what do you think here? Are you expecting Beijing to accept these chips?
No, I don't. And what's important is that the Trump administration licensed the export of the H200, not this month, but in January. And since January, China has not approved the purchases. So really what we're talking about is a long-term attitude on the part of the Chinese government not to buy NVIDIA. Now, NVIDIA is doing very well without China, as we saw from the earnings report. They don't need China. And I think we shouldn't be selling H200s or anything else to China because we know that they are not going to get addicted to our technology stack, as Commerce Secretary Lutnick said. So why are we helping China bridge the gap? We know that their Huawei chips aren't very good. DeepSeek, the Chinese AI company, told us that in the middle of last year, that they couldn't release their R2 model because they didn't have NVIDIA chips. So this is a competition, and we shouldn't be helping the competitor.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, there's this debate within Silicon Valley as well. I mean, Jensen Huang wants to sell his chips. He wants more business. Now, no surprise. But there are many people pushing back on that because of national security threats, like Anthropic, who says we shouldn't, who has the position that you have. We shouldn't be selling any chips to China right now if we want to be #1 in AI. But Gordon, yesterday, President Trump agreed to speak with Taiwan's president. The administration, of course, right now is weighing whether or not to continue this $14 billion weapons sale to Taiwan. Obviously, that came up with Xi Jinping. Watch this.
Do you have any plans to call President Lai of Taiwan before you make a decision on the weapons package?
Well, I'll speak to him. I speak to everybody. We have that situation very well in hand. We had a great meeting with President Xi. It was amazing, actually. It was amazing. Many of you were there. We'll work on the Taiwan problem.
So what about that, Gordon? I mean, it would be a big message to the world if he doesn't go through with this weapons sale to Taiwan, wouldn't it?
Well, certainly what it would say to the world is that China is more powerful than the United States, that President Trump submits to Xi Jinping. And also, it's not just the Taiwan issue. It also is Japan. we would be sending terrible messages to our friends and partners because I think that would dishearten them. You know, China right now bluffs a lot about Taiwan. It can't invade the main island because Xi Jinping has decimated his military. So now's the perfect time to sell arms to Taiwan because that will bolster deterrence. And that means ensuring peace and stability for years to come. So there's a clear answer here. President Trump needs to make that approval fast. And if it doesn't, people are going to start wondering about the U.S. and not just in East Asia, but also in Europe as well. So this is a critical test.
I think it's very important for the United States to back Taiwan, sell military equipment and weapons, but also to have a stance against China. We have to have a defense system there to prevent China from taking over Taiwan and controlling what is now called the 10-dash line. Used to be called the 9-dash line, but because they want some of the islands of Japan that's northeast of Taiwan, now it's the 10-dash line. So it's growing. The freedom of navigation would radically diminish for the U.S. military if we failed to protect Taiwan. So it's really important. And in terms of advanced chip sales to China, we should not be selling advanced chip sales to China, even if they're the lower grade versions. So, you know, I'm not a big fan of helping the AI revolution in China. Absolutely not. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. This collagen will help to improve your skin, your hair, your nails, your musculature, your bone density, and also your joints. This is a month supply. Take it every day to help with your joint health. Super important. Now, I also have collagen, and collagen will help to remodel the joints if you have arthritis or a sports injury. What it does is it blocks certain enzymes to prevent the erosion of the joint, and it also blocks enzymes that cause inflammation. In addition, it helps to recruit the ingredients to remodel the cartilage and remodel the cushioning of the joint. Take it every day. You can stack it with the collagen or take it separately, but I recommend stacking it with the collagen. And this is a great way to help to alleviate and help to rebuild those joints. The earlier you do this, the better, because if you have chronic joint pain, over time it's going to erode. And that will cause further damage and erode the cartilage and erode the cushioning. So it's really important to take the proper supplementation, but also to do this exercise. It's really simple. Whatever the joints you have a problem with, what you want to do is you want to either flex or extend up to the point of pain and then go a little bit beyond the pain and count to 20 seconds. And then release and do that again. Do that 2 or 3 times. And do that each day. And what you're going to notice is over time that you'll be able to open up the joint or close the joint more. Right? Either extend or flex that joint. You'll have more articulation over time. So do that exercise, take the collagen and the collagen, and that will give you all the ingredients to help to remodel joints that have arthritis and also joints that have had some sort of sports injury. Now, in terms of pain, if you want pain relief from muscle aches, a sprain, even tension headache, or arthritis, take the Super Strong Relief. This works within 90 seconds. It's a topical. You put it on the area that you have the pain, and voila, no pain. But it's a temporary relief, but it works. structural nanosilver toothpaste. It neutralizes, it whitens your teeth, it will help to reduce inflammation at the gum, improve your oral hygiene, and having good oral hygiene, guess what? It also helps with your cardiovascular health. So please go to my store, get the structural nanosilver toothpaste. This has no fluoride in it. It's a very high quality toothpaste. And structural nanosilver gels, you can get it in the quick dispenser, which is what's called Renew, and you can get it in the tube form. It's dual purpose. You can put it on a lesion and it'll help to heal a cut, an abrasion, a minor burn. Why? Because it keeps it clean and it protects it. In addition, you can use it as a daily skincare, as a topical. And if you're cleaning the house, because it's spring cleaning, put it on your hands, around your eyes, around your nose, around your mouth, around your ears. It'll stay active and neutralize for 5.5 hours. And it's creating that barrier, which is really important. But you can also do that for the cold season or the allergy season. So please go to my store, get the gels. You never know when you need them. Be prepared. All right. Now let's take a look at what's going on with the supreme leader of Iran. What do they have to say? This was from Live Now. It was published about an hour ago.
Hi there. Would you like to receive a gift? I'm a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox, 10:14 on the East Coast, 7:14 on the West Coast. Want to get you right back into some of the big stories that we are covering. And right now, this is coming in here. It's all kind of breaking at this hour as negotiations appear to once again have stalled between the U.S. and Iran. Reports are beginning to circulate that Iran's supreme leader has issued a directive that the country's near weapons-grade uranium must stay in Tehran and cannot be sent abroad. I want to bring in Fox's Ashley Webster joining us live from Tel Aviv. And Ashley, this has been a pretty big sticking point overall from President Trump. And I understand that the White House is actually pushing back on some of these reports.
Yes, it's the key issue for the United States and Israel that Iran has no access to a nuclear weapon. And of course, that weapons grade enriched uranium is a big part of that. The report today saying that Iran's supreme leader, who, by the way, has not been seen in public since he was injured in an attack, and quite honestly, we don't even know if he is alive. However, reports saying that he wants to keep all the enriched uranium within the borders of Iran. The White House simply saying that is not true. There's no validity to that at all. And it's just one of those statements that's released by who, we don't know. It floats around in the ether. But the White House says, no, it is absolutely bogus. And of course, if Iran does take that tact, well, that's not going to work at all. And we could see a resumption of military attacks on Iran.
And what we're looking at right now is a post from Aisha Hasni saying the White House is pushing back on this Reuters report. That's what you were talking about.
Yeah.
According to someone directly involved with the negotiations, that report is false. And Ashley, there's also, as always, a lot of talk about the Strait of Hormuz. Where do things kind of stand now?
Yeah.
Because I know that back and forth continues.
Yeah, well, right now it's where it's been for the last 80 days. It's hard to believe, but essentially it has been shut down to all commercial ships and oil tankers for 80 days in a row. It's having a huge impact on the global economy, including the United States, where we're seeing gas above $4 in all 50 states and much higher than that in some. As it stands, Iran just yesterday released what it called a commercial zone map, saying this is what we control. If you want to pass through the strait, you're going to have to go through us. You're going to have to fill out a ton of paperwork. And oh, by the way, it's going to cost you a lot of money. That's not going to fly with Washington. In fact, the UAE itself today said that is absolutely ridiculous. You have no control over the Strait of Hormuz. But frankly, at this point, Iran does. At the same time, the U.S. is imposing this naval blockade, and they've been doing that for several weeks now, that prevents any shipping getting in or out of Iranian ports. And that is putting a huge economic squeeze on Iran and, unfortunately, the people of Iran.
And Ashley, we also know that Pakistan has been serving as a mediator here, providing the different responses to the deals, kind of back and forth between the U.S. and Iran. Sounds as though Pakistan's leadership there is actually in Iran right now. Explain to me what we know about those kind of meetings.
Well, it's interesting. The Interior Minister came to Tehran again for the second time in less than a week. He's been very involved in kind of negotiating or, plotting out what Iran is prepared to offer and what the United States is prepared to accept. And right now, we know that neither side can come to some sort of common agreement. The biggest issue, again, though, is the ability of Iran to access a nuclear weapon. We also know that Pakistan's army leader is due to arrive today in Tehran to take part in these discussions as well. As it stands at this point, the Iranian leaders are reviewing the latest counter-proposal from the United States. So it's interesting. They're going back and forth, but really it's all academic if Iran refuses to basically ratchet down its nuclear program so that it cannot access a nuclear weapon. And that's where we stand.
Fox's Ashley Webster, thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to join us and breaking it down. We appreciate it.
All right, let's take a look at some other news that's breaking here. All right, balance of power is playing right now. So let's listen.
He felt that he wasn't happy with how this executive order stood at the moment because it would disadvantage the U.S. when it comes to our competition with China. This continues at this point, Kaylee, what has been months in the making of internal delays stalling this executive order from getting out. We know that some top tech CEOs were invited to the White House for this event today, but it doesn't seem like we're going to get it.
No, it does not. Of course, this event at the White House was with the EPA administrator focused on rolling back climate regulations when it comes to food refrigeration. Specifically, the administration arguing here that that is going to help lower food prices, maybe trying to address some of the price pressures that are dogging this administration right now and clearly are present in the polls. But it's absolutely fascinating to consider how all of this is feeding through to financial markets. As the president talks about not wanting to hold AI back in the U.S., you certainly are seeing the AI boom on display with NVIDIA's results, even if the market isn't all too impressed. That stock actually down about 2% today. So let's get a check on that and everything else in the broader markets as we turn to Charlie Pellet up in New York. Hey, Charlie.
Hi, thank you very much. And here's what's going on. The Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ, all in the red right now. We've got stocks declining midday Thursday with the S&P right now down 28.7404. Drop there of just about 0.4%. Dow Industrials down 121 right now, down 0.2%. NASDAQ, the composite index, slumping 133 now, down 5.
Just a little side note. The guy that's talking on Bloomberg, his voice was recorded and is on the MTA system for the mass transit in New York City. So if you hear something on the speaker, it's his voice. So I think that's just a little interesting tidbit. Now, my target for the S&P 500 is 7,400 for year end to about 7,800. Now, I do think that this correction that potentially could happen the end of this month to the beginning of next month, because the VIX looks like it's going to spike to about 25. Right now, it's at least it's trading. Let's see, what is it trading at right now? Yesterday it was trading at around 17, 18. And today it's trading at 17, 20. So VIX is pretty stable. I suspect that it's going to get closer to 25, maybe slightly higher than 25. And when that does happen, the equity market is going to sell off a little bit. There's a support level at around 7,200. Now, there is a major support level at around 6,800. I don't think it'll get down that low, but there may be a little bit of a correction in the S&P 500 in the short run. But it's also predicated on what's going on with Iran and the Strait of Hormuz. The longer this continues, the more it's going to cause problems with the bond market, with the energy markets, even fertilizer and the agricultural markets. So Trump needs to solve this problem. Now, the politics of this, the longer he waits, it's going to hurt the chances of the Republican Party during the midterm elections. So there's a lot of dynamics going on here. It needs to be solved. And the Iranians aren't going to negotiate at the table. So that means that there needs to be further kinetic means. The United States needs to hit Iran and hit it hard and get the job done. Problem with Trump is that he has a tendency to be a chicken. He chickens out. This is the whole talk. Trump always chickens out. That's taco. And it seems to be holding. So I'm concerned that it's being poorly mismanaged on opening up the Strait of Hormuz. And the Republican Party is going to be blamed for it in the midterm elections. And the households in the United States are going to feel the pain because if the bond market's yields are going up, then that means that the cost of a mortgage, the cost of a auto loan, those are all going to be higher because of this. On top of the cost of other goods and services will increase. The more this continues, the longer it's going to bake in inflation. All right, so let's listen into Bloomberg.
It's really unclear. I think we've seen a lot of threats over the last, since the ceasefire in sort of early April. We've seen a lot of it almost broke down several times, including when the U.S. military tried to facilitate a couple of vessels leaving Hormuz. Iran attacked them fiercely. The U.S. repelled those attacks. But basically, the situation ended with Trump calling that operation off, and a lot of the merchant vessels kind of coming to the conclusion that Iran is not going to let them out of the strait without a fight, because that strait, the closure of Hormuz, is Iran's key piece of leverage in these talks. And so if they try and do something like that again, which the White House has said is a possibility, you could see, fights over merchant vessels. You could see some more clashes. I think a lot of analysts suspect that before this is over, we will probably see some more kinetic action somewhere around that, either in the strait or nearby, as both of the sides sort of jostle for the best position in these talks. I think the reality, though, is that at least up until now, Iran has proved a tiny bit more resilient than the White House thought, and has not crumbled on some of the demands, even with this U.S. naval blockade that we've seen.
All right, Bloomberg's Ian Marlowe, thank you so much, helping us react to some of what we heard from President Trump on Iran specifically. But of course, we also heard from the president on AI and the tabling of an executive order for now that he felt might in part hold the U.S. back in terms of competing with other players like China. And we heard more about AI from the CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon, when he spoke with Bloomberg's Haslinda Amin about what it would mean for jobs at his bank earlier. Listen.
I think we'll be hiring more AI people and probably less bankers in certain categories, and they'll make them more productive. So when you get up in the morning and you want to interview someone, it'll lay out what I've said in 14 different places. They'll give you questions. Your job will be the same. You'll just be much smarter at how you execute that job. So,
but I guess the question,
but we will retrain and redeploy our people.
So for more on how to think about our...
So let's get this straight. AI is going to tell you what you should be asking someone. So his example, I think he meant the actual interviewer from Bloomberg, that she's going to just use the AI and state, well, I'm going to be interviewing Jamie Dimon tomorrow. What should be the 14 best questions to ask him? If you have a whole society doing that, you have a whole society that doesn't know how to write and doesn't know how to critically think. That's a problem. You should be able, on a pen and a piece of paper, not a laptop, not your cell phone, not your iPad, just a pen and a piece of paper. Write in cursive what your questions to Jamie Dimon are. And you'd be amazed because there is actually a connection when you move your body to write something and what you're thinking. There's neurological research that suggests that learning and thinking while you're moving is actually better. But if you let AI do everything for you, even the writing and the thinking, Jamie Dimon says, well, your job's going to be the same. You'll just be more productive. But over time, what will happen is that these other skills that you have, like reading and writing and thinking, will start to atrophy. So AI can make the society more productive, but it's a tool. It's a tool and it can't be overused. If you overuse a hammer when you're building a house, you're not going to have a very good house. So you have to be able to know when to use it. You have to use it judiciously. If you overuse it, there's a problem. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the cleanse or the Max 35 or Max 14. This will help to boost up your innate immune system. Take a teaspoon a day every day, swish in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds and swallow it. What this will do is improve your oral cavity, your oral pharynx, maintain a mucosal barrier, help the health of your epithelial cells in your oral pharynx, and boost up that immune system. I've been doing this protocol for 6 years, every day. Super important. And if you're not feeling well because of the cold season or because you're cleaning the house and you're exposed to dust or allergies, you should be taking a tablespoon or two. And I also have structural nanosilver drops and lozenges. You can get it in cherry flavor for the drops, and for the lozenges, which are slightly big, you can get the orange splash that's fortified with vitamin C, and also the Manuka honey. Very high quality structural nanosilver lozenges and drops to help with that throat irritation and to maintain that mucosal barrier. This is perfect for cleaning the house, for the allergy season, and the cold season. So get a few bags for your household. You never know when you need it. It's really important. And especially when you start having a lot of temperature changes and wild fluxes with precipitation this year because of El Nino, you'll start noticing that more people will have irritation in the throat because of these wild swings with the weather. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. That's the end of my broadcast. Click the link that's in the description. Go to my website and get the great products that I offer. And if you want to help support the work that I do, you can be a paid member to my Patreon channel or my Substack channel. You can also donate on my website through Stripe, PayPal, or Buy Me a Coffee at the bottom of the homepage. All these videos are for free, and I think I give a unique perspective. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.